In episode 6, Owen is taken to a train yard. That's where he's going to meet with El Jefe. He's escorted inside a train car that is packed to the gills with what looks like are rockets. There's an interesting logo on the boxes with a scorpion whose tail is a rocket, and Owen makes note of it, but then he's escorted in to actually have his meeting with El Jefe. There's a lot of posturing by both sides, El Jefe coming in with a lowball offer, Owen standing his ground saying that's not going to work. The price is $7 million, but you're not just getting Max's operations here. You'll also get an inroad to her operation in Eastern Europe. El Jefe knows all about Max's history with Europe. He knows that she's ex-Russian Mafia, but as Owen points out, you're never ex-Russian Mafia, just like you're never ex-Aquino Cartel. There's a power play coming, and Max is going to end up on top. Owen's fast thinking and negotiating skills has El Jefe paying $7 million for the operation. Although Owen does have to give up the name of the banker, Zuri Wench, and how she helps Max get foreclosed homes. After negotiating the deal, Owen and Max hop on a plane and head back to Virginia, where they're surprisingly picked up by Dawn. Owen wasn't expecting that, but as Dawn tells him, she's my asset, so I'm picking her up. The plan is to take Max to the safe house and then move her over to Langley for her intake procedure. While it's frustrating, they do have to act like Max is a new asset. Max and Dawn get in the car, but when Owen goes to get in the car, Dawn tells him that she needs to debrief Maladze and that he's going to find his own way there. Before Owen calls an Uber, he decides to text Not Bob, telling him that he's got some information. And then Owen gets a text of his own. It's from Terrence, telling him that he's late to a scavenger hunt that he agreed to go to, and that Hannah is 5 mimosas deep. She's really upset. As Owen makes his way over to the bar to meet his friends, Maladze is sort of getting debriefed by Dawn. These two have a past. Neither of them acknowledge it to Owen, but they know each other. And Max blames Dawn for leaving her in Belarus, but Dawn says, that wasn't my call. And Max points out, yeah, but you went along with it. Max definitely does not trust Dawn. She feels like she has ulterior motives. Dawn lays out why this is a win for her, but then changed the topic to Max sleeping with Owen. Even though it's not true, Max doesn't deny it, just saying that Owen's a useful tool, nothing more. But she does say that she wouldn't jeopardize her future by giving Owen dirt on Dawn. You get the sense that Dawn is one of those people that Max talked about, the ones that she knows a lot on. By the time those two get to the safe house, Owen has made his way to the bar. Terrence, though, isn't talking to Hannah. He's talking to a guy that he knows, a guy he's very interested in. That's when Owen walks up and interrupts their conversation. Terrence introduced the two, and the guy's name is Linus. He works with Terrence at the Treasury Department. He's also a pretty big deal there. Linus can sense that these two want to chat, so he gets up and goes to the bathroom, and Terrence lays into Owen. He thinks it was a scumbag move using Hannah's credit card to hook up with somebody else. But when Owen tries to set the record straight, Terrence tells him, I don't want to hear it, man. Tell her. Before Owen can do that, he has to get through her buffer. It's the same bitchy girl from Smoot's office, the same one that reveled in the idea of Owen getting tortured on C-SPAN. She tells Owen that Hannah doesn't want to talk to him, but also that Smoot confirmed he's still a nobody, so he should expect another subpoena very soon. After more back and forth, Hannah finally interjects and says it's fine, he can talk to me. And Owen starts going into damage control, apologizing but also clearing up what actually happened. He doesn't mention Max by name, but he just says that he got roped into going back to Phoenix to deal with this asset. Hannah keeps telling him that she doesn't care. She shouldn't be upset. They're not even dating, but it's clear that she is upset. She's not the only one who's upset, though. So is Owen. He doesn't like being portrayed like this. He tells Hannah, I've made a lot of mistakes, but by far the worst one is hurting you. Because it seems like it's genuine, Hannah forgives him. They then start focusing on the scavenger hunt. Owen actually knows where one of the things is, but they get interrupted when Secret Service shows up looking for Owen. Not Bob wasn't about to wait for him to just pop on by the White House. He wants to talk to him immediately. As soon as Owen gets in the car, Not Bob says, what have you found? But Owen doesn't tell him, at least not yet. Owen's realizing how to play the game, and he realizes he has a little bit of leverage in this situation. So he tells Kevin, Senator Smoot is up my ass. He's got a subpoena on me. I want it to go away. Can you make that happen? And Kevin chuckles and says, yeah, I'll put up a fight, but you won't have to worry about it. That is when Owen tells him about Xander Goy, how Goy was the one who gave up his name. And it makes sense. After meeting with Goy, suddenly he had people trying to kill him. Even though Kevin's never heard of Xander Goy, he does find it very interesting and would like to know what more Xander Goy has to hide. Kevin then changed the topic, telling Owen that he could use a clearer picture of what's going on at the OGC. He doesn't come right out and say it, but he wants Owen to spy on Nyland. And Owen tells Kevin, I'm not doing that. I have too much respect for Nyland. That was the right answer. Because as it turns out, Not Bob and Nyland are bros. Really good friends, and this was all a test. Owen passed. He then kicks Owen out of the car, and about an hour later, Owen shows up at Langley and meets up with Dawn and Max. They've got a full day ahead of them. Max has to get vetted, and that's going to be a whole thing. In order to do that, she has a polygraph test, forms to fill out, and if she fails any of it, she gets bounced, and then suddenly she's not useful anymore. They also get on the same page about how they found Max. That way they won't draw suspicion. When they get out of the elevator, Langley is an absolute shit show because it's family day. You've got kids running all over the place. They bypass the swarm of kids and go to Dawn's office, where she has the entire Russian mob on a whiteboard, laid out top to bottom. Max does recognize a few, although a lot of the people she dealt with are dead. To make it worse, a lot of the ones she does recognize don't like her. Max starts pointing out the people and saying, yeah, we're going to need him dead, and she doesn't like me either. There are a couple she thinks she can win over, but the rest of them have to be, quote, neutralized, aka they need to die. What they need to find out is who the gatekeeper is. That's the council member who they have to bribe to welcome her back in. Dawn reassures her that they're working on that, and then she pulls out the paperwork that they have to start. It's common stuff. Name, birthday, where you were born, parents, siblings. She's honest with all of it, until she's asked about children, and she just says none. It's not totally a lie, but it's also not the truth, because the rest of them, she was saying deceased. Owen notices it. Owen, however, is just sitting there doing nothing. He wants to be useful. So he excuses himself because he wants to go hunt down the guy who's doing the psych evaluation to find out if he can get any insight that can help them out. Before he does that, he goes and asks Lester and Violet for help, but they brush him off, saying, yeah, we're not helping you out, sorry. So he has to go to Nyland's office, where he's got kids running all over the place. He gives Nyland a quick update about the fact that Max is in the building, she's getting vetted, and then he asks Nyland for some advice on how to handle the whole vetting process. Unfortunately, Nyland tells him there's not a whole lot you can do. We don't control the questions. Nyland asks Owen if there's anything else, and Owen says, yeah, actually, I had a meeting with Kevin Mills, a.k.a. Not Bob. He fills Nyland in on everything that happened. Their initial meeting and the fact that Not Bob asked him to spy, but it turned out they know each other. He didn't want to fill Nyland in on the initial meeting because he wanted Nyland to have plausible deniability. But Nyland knew everything, because as Not Bob told Owen in the car, they're friends. And for whatever reason, Owen is a little shook. He can't figure out if Kevin told Nyland because he figured Owen wouldn't say anything, or if he figured Owen would say something. It's all Owen can think about when he leaves Nyland's office, although he doesn't have a lot of time to think about it because he runs into Amelia. He's extremely fidgety and asks Amelia to point him in the direction of the psychologist, and she does. Owen heads there, and he gets good news from this guy. The doctor tells him, look, man, I pass everybody. But with the good news comes some bad news. As easy as this guy is, the guy administering the polygraph test is the opposite. He'll bounce you for lying about anything. So now Owen has to hunt him down. He ends up locating him in, of all places, the bathroom. He tries to get a sense of who this guy is, what to expect, but this guy is way too rigid. Even when Owen tries to joke around, the guy just doesn't have a sense of humor about anything. Because of this, Owen's anxiety is through the roof. In order to get his mind off of it, he heads over to Giannis's office. He wants to show him the scorpion sketch that he made, the one that he saw on the boxes in the train that was run by the cartel. As soon as Giannis sees it, though, he knows what it is, and he gets extremely agitated. That's because they're American anti-tank missiles, and they're linked back to Giannis because his Spec Ops team was smuggling them out of the country to sell to some shady people. That way they could track them and arrest them. Giannis advised them against this, thinking it was a disaster of an idea, but they drugged him and did it anyway. He calls up the leader of the Spec Ops team and starts ripping into him for this dumb idea. The guy assures Giannis that they would have disabled the rockets, but as Giannis points out, there's literally YouTube videos that show you how to rearm them. When Giannis hangs up the phone, he just says, we are so screwed. And Owen can't figure out why he said we. Giannis chuckles and says, if I have to testify about how I allowed an unsanctioned covert op to put rockets in the hands of terrorists, you'll have to testify about how you ended up on a cartel drug train. If Congress finds out about this, it'll be the biggest scandal in a generation. This leads Owen to basically having a full-blown panic attack in the bathroom. After a little bit of time, he is able to collect himself. He heads to go see the update with Max, and she just finished her psych evaluation. She's about to do her polygraph test. Although the psychologist tells him she's a phenomenal asset, but you absolutely cannot trust her. Before Max does go the polygraph test, she tells everybody she has to go to the bathroom, and Owen follows her. She doesn't actually go to the bathroom, though, although she has to. What she does is she's been downing 5-hour energy shots. This is a strategic play. She wants to keep her heart rate jolted up. That way, the polygraph won't know what's a lie and what's the truth. This works. Guy can't tell what's the truth from what's a lie. But as Max is answering the questions, Owen and Dawn are watching the questions from a separate room. At one point, Owen turns to Dawn and says, "Hey, in Yemen, you told me you've never met Max before, right? Because ever since she's gotten here, you haven't asked me one question about her, and it's as if you've already met her before and you know her." And that's because, yes, these two definitely have a history. We're talking a 12-year history. Dawn was actually the one who got Max to be an asset. She jumped into Max's car one night and told her, "I work for the CIA, and I know you killed your husband and blamed his murder on a rival. This allowed you to take your husband's place in the Russian mafia. I also know that if the council were to find out what you did, they'd cut you apart with a blowtorch. So I want you to start working for me. All you have to do is tell me what they tell you." After that, Max became Dawn's asset. But the fact that Owen thinks that Dawn and Max know each other is not good news for Dawn. She goes straight to Nyland's office and says, "I think Owen's been compromised. I think we need to put him under the polygraph test." Nyland calls in Amelia, not knowing that Amelia and Owen actually are currently in a relationship together. But if you're going to put anybody under a polygraph test, you need a lawyer there present. And Amelia is going to be the lawyer for Owen. When she hears the accusation from Dawn, she dismisses it. But Dawn does pull out the picture and says they shared a hotel room together. They dismiss Dawn, they call Owen in, and they tell him that they think he's been compromised. Immediately, Owen knows that it was Dawn who did this, and he starts panicking a little bit, pleading his case to Nyland and Amelia. He even goes so far as to say Gilbane is the one who's been compromised by the asset, but he has no proof of that. He backs down a little bit from that, but does claim that there is a history between the two. Even if Gilbane says there isn't, there is. Unfortunately, though, for Owen, Nyland tells him, "My hands are tied. It was brought to my attention, so we have to go through with it." A short while later, Owen is hooked up to the polygraph test as Amelia and Dawn watch from the other room. In the middle of the test, Owen gets so frustrated that he takes his aggression out on the guy administering the test, saying how the test is inaccurate, how anyone can beat it, how it's not even important anymore. In retaliation, the guy asks him some pretty interesting questions that Owen doesn't really want to answer knowing Amelia's in the other room. Like, have you ever seen Max naked? And he has when she was trying to seduce him. He also asks Owen if he ever had sexual contact with Max, and Owen says no. But then he asks, have you wanted to have sexual contact with Max? And Owen gets frustrated, and Amelia's the one who tells the polygraph test guy, move on. He finishes the rest of the test, and he passes, but he fails with Amelia. She lets him know that he did pass the test, but also that she's breaking up with him. At the end of the day, while she has fun with him, Owen's too 20-something for her. After getting dumped, he heads to meet with Gilbane and Max, and Gilbane isn't happy. Not only because Owen passed his polygraph test, but also because Nyland had called Dawn's boss and insisted that Owen stay on the operation. Owen tells Dawn that he had nothing to do with it, but also that if she tries to sabotage him again, it'll end badly for her. Dawn breaks up the pissing contest by saying, we got to focus on how we're going to buy my way back in. Bad news is they found out who she has to bribe, and it's the worst person, because the guy, who's named Lev, worked with Max's husband, and he wasn't a huge fan of Max. So he thinks he's going to want at least $10 million. Now they need to figure out a way to get $3 million, and Max has an idea. She has that money, and then some, in a Swiss bank account, but it's got sanctions all over it. All they have to do is get the accounts unsanctioned, and that's going to be Owen's job. That night, Owen gets home. He gives his roommates the update on Amelia, and then he asks Terrence a Treasury Department question. Owen tries really hard to be discreet about the situation that he finds himself in, and what both Terrence and Hannah tell him is it's going to take a lot to get those accounts unsanctioned. Hannah would know. Her parents repped several oligarchs over the years. And even though they've tried, they've never gotten the U.S. government to budge on sanctions. That's because there's a giant list of sanctioned accounts that goes to all the banks. It's updated daily, and each account is literally locked into the bank's computers. A red flag goes up if anyone tries to access them. The only way to unlock an account is to get it excluded by the bank. Owen's ears immediately perk up, and he says, "Who do I have to talk to about that?" And it's Linus, the guy that Terrence was talking to. The next day, Owen meets up with Linus in a parking lot. He explains it's a matter of national security, and he fills him in. Linus' first reaction is, no way. But Owen presses. So Linus is going to do it for him. He's going to unsanction the account for an hour. That's as long as Owen has. In return, though, Linus wants to go on a date with Terrence, so Owen said he'll put a good word in. He then gets ready to leave for Belarus, Russia, that whole flight. But he gets called in Nyland's office beforehand. There was one question that Owen didn't get right in the polygraph test, and that was, has the asset ever lied? So Owen fills Nyland in on the fact that Max said she didn't have any kids when she probably should have said deceased. He didn't correct it because he didn't want to give Dawn the leverage. He just doesn't trust Dawn Gilbane to do the same. Nyland agrees with him, and he tells him if Gilbane has been compromised, you need to get me proof of that. After Owen leaves Nyland's office, Nyland meets with both Lester and Violet. He tells them both that he's sending them to Geneva as well. He wants them to keep an eye on Owen. If all goes well, Owen's never going to know about it. Gilbane, Max, and Owen then get on a plane to head overseas. Dawn does a little mission debrief telling them the next 48 hours are mission critical. Max and Owen will head to Geneva to get the money from her Swiss bank account. Dawn and her team will head to Germany where they'll begin mission planning to get the reinsertion into Belarus. Owen, though, knows that Dawn isn't going to just let Max and himself run around Geneva together. And Dawn tells him, you're right. Xander Goy landed in Geneva about an hour ago. He'll be babysitting you guys. Thank you so much for checking out this recap. Please consider subscribing to the channel and subscribing to my Patreon. Hit thumbs up if you liked it. Smash that thumbs down button if you thought it sucked. If you left a comment, I don't get back to you. I usually don't check the comments unless they're like a super comment. Also, if you don't see the next video up on the end screen, not to worry. It'll be up in a day or two.